From punching fans to kicking cameramen and even trash talking to someone who idolized you, NBA players don't always know exactly where the line is and can certainly take things way too far. So let's take a look at the times where NBA players took things way too far. If you enjoyed this video, why not hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss out on a Hoops and Scoops video. Let's get into the video. If you know anything about Dennis Rodman, then you certainly won't be shocked that he is in this video. The former Bulls and Pistons forward had some crazy moments on and off the court, like meeting Kim Jong-un, going to Las Vegas in the NBA Finals, and some of the most insane outfits in NBA history. But Rodman certainly crossed the line in 1997 when he tumbled to the ground on the court. Having fallen into the first row of the crowd, Rodman kicked a cameraman who had fallen on it after the cameraman pointed his camera at Rodman. It was the definition of crossing the line and an incredibly expensive one. In fact, it was probably the most expensive groin kick of all time, which is a weird record to hold. The entire resulting lawsuit and suspensions cost Rodman around $1.1 million. Now that is one expensive kick. While everyone in the NBA knew Rodman crossed the line, it was difficult to really say who was to blame for one of the most famous incidents in NBA history. Even fans who weren't born when the Malice at the Palace took place know about the incident. In a November 2004 game between the Indiana Pacers and the Detroit Pistons, both teams were settling down after a fight had broken out. Pacers small forward Ron Artest was led onto the scorer's table when a fan threw a drink that hit Artest. That moment was the spark for players charging into the stands, with a massive fight breaking out between players and fans. It is one of the craziest incidents in NBA history. Not only did the fans cross the line by throwing a drink at a player, but the reaction from the players was way over the top. In total, there was 9 different players suspended for a total of 146 games. That's a loss of $11 million in salary. Undoubtedly one of the craziest incidents in NBA history, the Malice at the Palace is certainly one of those moments the league does not like to remember. Fans and players usually get on pretty well, but there have certainly been more than a few moments where players stepped across the line with fans. Rockets guard Vernon Maxwell certainly had one of those moments in a 1995 game against the Portland Trail Blazers. A fan had kept on heckling Maxwell during the game, and instead of just ignoring the moron in the crowd, Maxwell took matters into his own hands. He ran into the stands and punched the fan. At the time, the moment shocked the NBA, with Maxwell getting a 10-game ban and a $20,000 fine for the incident. But when you hear the reasoning behind it, maybe it wasn't over the line. Maxwell still has zero regrets about the incident because the fan wasn't just hating on his game, but instead was assaulting Maxwell's family. Punching a man might have been too far, but maybe not considering the things the fan was saying. Still, probably not smart for your career to run into the stands and punch a fan. While there is not always a lot of respect between players and fans, respect between players and coaches is critical. As a 3-time All-Star, Latrell Sprewell was developing a pretty good reputation in the NBA with the fun Golden State Warriors. In a December 1997 practice session, Warriors head coach P.J. Carlesimo asked Sprewell to put a little mustard on some of his passes. Sprewell said he was not in the mood to be criticized and instead told his coach to keep his distance. A pretty normal heated moment between coach and player. Well, that was until Sprewell grabbed the coach by the throat and choked him for what is believed to be around 10 seconds. Yeah, not the sort of thing you usually see in a training session. It was not the first time that Sprewell had gotten into an incident at training, with his teammates describing him as Mike Tyson-like. It sounds like a compliment, but not really. Sprewell was suspended for an entire year, which was the longest suspension in NBA history until, you guessed it, the Malice at the Palace. While it seems like NBA players crossing the line like this is a thing of the past, that could not be further from the truth. Detroit Pistons forward Isaiah Stewart showed that the NBA still has a mean streak in it when the Pistons played against the Lakers. To be fair to Stewart, LeBron James was the man who started it all by hitting Stewart in the face and causing him to bleed. But Stewart reacted like a crazy person, charging at LeBron multiple times. After the initial pushing and shoving had calmed down, it seemed like that was the end of things. But Stewart again charged towards LeBron, knocking people over like a human-sized bowling ball. Officials, players, and even his own team personnel had to hold Stewart back, and the blood in his face did not make him look any calmer. Stewart got a 2-game ban for his actions. I mean, LeBron definitely should not have hit him in the face like that, and you can see why Stewart would be angry. But his reaction was mental and definitely a case of charging well over the line. Players can go over the line with referees quite often, but I don't think anyone ever has had as much beef with referees as Rasheed Wallace. I could spend an entire video talking about all the incidents between Wallace and referees, but thankfully for you, one really sticks out. After Wallace's Portland Trailblazers played against the Memphis Grizzlies, he was not happy at all about receiving a technical foul from Tim Donaghy. When the game finished, Wallace headed to the car park and found Donaghy, with the two exchanging some not too nice words. The details of the situation are understandably pretty murky, with some reports saying that Wallace threatened Donaghy before the two had to be separated. The league did not take kindly to that at all, with Wallace being suspended for 7 games. You can disagree with bad calls all you want, but following an official to his car is way too far. But strangely enough, Wallace was the man who got the last laugh. You might recognize the name Tim Donaghy because he was the referee who bet on games that he was in charge of, eventually doing 10 months in prison for the offense. Preseason is the perfect time for players to get ready for the season, for coaches to test out lineups and decide who is going to make the roster. It is usually taken pretty lightly by some of the best players in the league. Well, I don't think Marcus Morris got the memo about that because he brought his tough presence in a 2019 preseason game for the Knicks. In a preseason game between the New York Knicks and the Washington Wizards, Morris got into it with Justin Anderson. In trying to get some space, Morris swung his elbows a couple of times at the Wizards forward and eventually connected on Anderson's forehead. It was a pretty unnecessary act from Morris, and the two players had a few words before being separated by their teammates. Morris was ejected from the game for an offensive flagrant 2 foul. I mean, it is really not the smartest thing to do in a preseason game. I know you never want to be out-physicaled by another player, but come on, it's a preseason game at the end of the day. One guy who never knew when to stop playing at full speed was Kevin Garnett. Not only was Garnett an incredibly physical and demanding player, but he could talk trash almost as well as any player in the NBA. There were more than a few times where KG took his trash talk over the line. Well, one of those was between KG and Joakim Noah. As a big man trying to make his way in the league, Noah looked up to KG, and he was one of his favorite players. In fact, when he was younger, Noah even had posters of KG up on his wall. So I'm sure the Bulls' big man would have been ecstatic when given the chance to face off against the man who he grew up idolizing. Well, I don't think Kevin Garnett cared very much about that praise, and things got heated between the two when Noah mentioned how much of a fan he was. KG roasted the youngster and made him look stupid for saying something, even if it was a compliment. Noah was only trying to praise one of his idols, but instead he got absolutely roasted by KG in classic Garnett fashion. In classic NBA fan fashion, this Utah Jazz fan caused James Harden to definitely cross the line. During Game 2 of the 2018 Western Conference Finals, Jazz fans were doing whatever they possibly could to get into the head of league MVP James Harden. Well, one fan clearly said something that got under the skin of Harden as he walked over to the fan and slapped away the fan's phone.
You're still the worst flopper in the NBA.
Just stay away. Get back to your seat.
I was back
Get
here.
back to your
He
seat.
just hit my phone.
Smartly enough, security got in the way before the tense situation could flare up anymore, with the fan clearly not happy about his phone being slapped like that. There was even another incident in the game where Harden had to be separated from that very same fan. That Jazz fan really was doing everything he possibly could to get in Harden's head, and I definitely think that he took things a little bit too far. Harden and the Rockets got the last laugh though, because despite the Rockets losing in Game 2 where the incident happened, they won the next 3 games to close out the series. What do you think is the moment when the NBA players went too far? Why not put your thoughts in the comments down below?